One of the questions I had was, how can we be more effective on a local level as far as pushing immigration reform?
We put together this tremendous coalition. I mean, from the entire religious community, from liberal to conservative. We've got law enforcement speaking up forcefully. We've got their local groups, and you may want to work with them, that are organizing. Everybody in the Bay Area is already for immigration reform. So, we always love to hear from people, but we don't need our minds to be changed on it because we're already there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of, we need about 20 Republicans out of 435 members. That's all we need is about 20 to come on board, and we'd have this done. The Senate passed a bill, so we're probably going to do a discharge petition. That's not yet decided, but we're thinking about it. Pelosi and I had a whole bunch of meetings last week. The majority party decides everything that's on the floor. I mean, you don't have a vote unless they schedule the vote. And there's a way around that called a discharge petition, which is if you get 218 members of the House, which is the bare majority, to sign this petition, which is held by the clerk on the House floor, then the bill is discharged from the committee and goes to the floor for a vote. So, but we can't get a majority without the Republicans. So there's going to be some organizing efforts around that. There's a group called PACT, People Acting Community. It's a faith-based group. They've done a lot. The Labor Council is doing a lot. Individual labor unions, or SEIU in particular, has done a lot. UFCW, the business community. I mean, the leadership group. So pick your group. Everybody's trying to lobby, but they're going to, like, out to the Central Valley, some of the Republican areas, seeing if we can't get some guys to help.
Sabrina,
Yeah.
I believe you have a question around redistricting.
So I know that last year we went from being in District 16 to being in District 19.
Right.
And I was looking at how redistricting works. I know you had a bill you were trying to pass in
Right.
around 2007
Right.
that changed the process for
Right.
that. And I see that currently California is supposed to have a bipartisan committee approach to that. How exactly does that work, and how does it affect our votes?
Well, the bill I had would have provided commissions that are not political in every state, but not every state does redistricting, because some states have such a low population they only have two senators and one House member.
Right.
But for those states that need to apportion, every 10 years the census counts everybody, and then you have to have districts that are equal because it's one person, one vote. And so the district lines need to be adjusted so that there's equal numbers of people in each district. That's basically it.
Okay.
You can draw them different ways. So there are some constraints because of civil rights issues that the Supreme Court has actually whittled away some. But if you're in a bigoted state, for example, and this has happened, you've got African Americans and Anglos. I mean, there are more Latinos in some of these states, but that was basically the divide in some of these southern states. And you could say, okay, we're going to round up every African American vote possible and cram them into the same district. And what that means is, you'll have an African American, probably Democratic member in that seat, but if you skew it so that those Democratic voters are all in one district, it makes all the surrounding districts a lot more Republican, right? So it's done for partisan purposes. And that's why we thought something that was apolitical would be better. What California voters did, and I opposed it honestly because I thought we should do it in every state, not just one. But the voters made a different decision, which was their decision to make. And we now have a nonpartisan commission. And what they did was they had all these hearings, and I watched a lot of them. They were webcast. They were not permitted to know where the elected officials lived. They were not permitted to know what the voter registration was, or a bunch of demographic information. And they took testimony, and there were some rules, like try and keep communities of interest together, adhere to civil rights, principles. So, no dilution, no packing. And they did the best they could. It wasn't a perfect job, but it was an apolitical job. And so they renumbered the districts, which they didn't have to do, but because there were adjustments throughout, and but the district that I represent is pretty much similar to what I had before. The north part of San Jose was put into, what is it 15 that Honda now has? I think so. And then Almaden Valley that I used to represent is now in Congresswoman Eshu's district. Burbank, which used to be in an area I represented, is now in Congresswoman Eshu's district. But I also now represent Gilroy and Morgan Hill. And so, yeah, but it's like 92% the same. Other districts, had big changes. And the interesting thing is, apolitically, Democrats actually picked up 4 seats from Republicans. And some of that was demographic change, and some of it was more competitive districts.
I'm very grateful for this opportunity to have a chance to sit down with her. When I drove to the parking lot, I was just like, wow, like her office is really quaint. That's what I first initially thought. And I was just like, this is so accessible to the people. And just speaking to her, she really embodies that.
I've always been a little bit disenchanted with the government ever since I've kind of I took AP Gov in high school, and I just always had a really hard time with the idea of how I could ever make a difference, because I felt like the system's just so hard to get through. But listening to her today, the idea that you want to find people and help them help you, and finding the right people to talk to makes a lot of sense to me. So I feel like that kind of gives me an idea of, when I have an issue, how I can go about changing things, which I'd never really thought of before.
Very fruitful. Always had my own predisposed thought and stigma of politics and what it means to be a politician. And with this interview, it showed me the true and in-depth care that our local or our federal Congresswoman has. Zoe Lofgren. She's just amazing and very informative, and kind of helps you chisel your path just by standing as an example of what we need in our communities.
Producer.